A millionaire came home without notice and froze at what his black maid was teaching his twins prayer? "What is this rubbish you are doing?" he roared, pointing at me. "Why have you decided to turn my house to a roadside church?" Hello there, welcome to today's story. I have been battling with lots of issues, so I have not been able to write, but am better now. Seat tight as to continue our story. Elias, a man whose suits seemed to be a second skin, moved through his domain with the precision of a finely tuned machine. His jaw, perpetually set, spoke of decisions made and empires defended. His eyes, the color of a winter sky, were usually fixed on distant horizons, the next merger, the quarterly reports, the shifting landscape of international markets. He was 42, but the relentless pursuit of success had etched lines of perpetual concentration around his eyes, making him appear older, wearier, yet undeniably powerful. His mornings began before dawn, fueled by strong coffee and global news feeds. His days were a blur of boardrooms, private jet terminals, and high-stakes negotiations. Evenings, if he was home, were spent in his study, the glow of monitors reflecting in his glasses, the murmur of distant city traffic the only companion. He had 2 children, twins, Lily and Leo, aged 7. He loved them, in his way. He provided for them extravagantly, ensured they had the best nannies, tutors, and schools. He saw their photos on his desk, meticulously updated by his assistant. He sent them gifts that would make other children swoon. He knew their birth dates, their favorite colors, currently sparkle pink for Lily, dragonfire red for Leo. What he didn't know, couldn't articulate, was the texture of their laughter, the anxieties that furrowed their tiny brows, the comfort of their small, trusting hands in his. His ex-wife, a vibrant artist he'd married in a brief, passionate interlude, had once accused him of loving his work more than his family. He'd scoffed, dismissed it as artistic melodrama. Now, years later, the accusation sometimes whispered in the quiet hours, a ghost in the vast, empty rooms. He dismissed it still. Providing was loving. Security was love. What else was there? Emotional theatrics were for those who didn't have to build empires. Today, a rare break in his relentless schedule, a sudden cancellation of an overseas flight due to an unforeseen technical issue, had left him with an uncharacteristic gap in his day. His first instinct was to descend to the corporate office, to seize the unexpected hours for more work. But something, a flicker of an image of Lily's hopeful smile from a recent video call, nudged him differently. He found himself heading home, a place that was more a logistical hub than a sanctuary, a place where he was the provider, not the presence. He wanted to surprise them, he told himself, show them he wasn't always working. It felt like an obligation, a box to check. Yet there was a faint, unfamiliar tremor in his chest. Miles away, in a sprawling, comfortable, but by no means ostentatious suburban home, Lena Mae Johnson moved with a grace born of purpose and quiet strength. Her hands, lined with the stories of 62 years, were capable of both gentle care and formidable strength. Her skin, the color of rich earth, seemed to hold the warmth of the sun. Lena Mae had been the Thorne family's housekeeper for 5 years, but to Lily and Leo she was a quiet anchor, a steady light in their often turbulent world. Her own home, filled with mismatched but cherished furniture, smelled perpetually of spices and a faint, sweet aroma of baking. Photos adorned every surface, generations of family, smiling faces, graduations, weddings. Her late husband, Robert, a man whose laughter had filled rooms, smiled from a framed photo on the mantel, his eyes crinkling at the corners. They had shared 40 years, 2 children, and an unwavering faith that had seen them through lean times and joyful ones. After Robert's passing, the silence in her own home had been deafening, but her faith had held her upright. Working for the Thornes had given her a new purpose, a new generation to pour her abundant love into, a new place to offer her quiet strength. She saw it in Lily's tendency to hoard small, comforting objects, and in Leo's intense focus on fantasy worlds, escaping into stories of valiant knights and hidden kingdoms. She had quickly understood that while their physical needs were met beyond measure, their emotional and spiritual cups were often empty. Lena May believed in the power of a kind word, a warm meal, and the quiet strength of prayer. She wasn't preachy, never imposed, but she answered their questions, listened to their fears, and offered comfort when their father's presence was a distant rumor. She taught them responsibility, joy in simple things, and the quiet dignity of a well-ordered life. She often hummed old hymns as she cleaned, her voice a soft melody that drifted through the high ceilings, slowly infusing the house with something it desperately lacked. This afternoon, Lily had come to her, a small frown marring her perfect brow. "Lena May," she'd whispered, "my tummy hurts." "Oh, sweet pea," Lena May had said, kneeling to cup the child's face in her hands. "Is it a worried tummy or a hungry tummy?" Lily had shrugged, eyes downcast. "Sometimes I just miss Daddy and Mummy's painting in Paris." Leo, ever the protector, had appeared beside his sister. "Knights are brave, but even knights miss their families." Lena May had gathered them both, her arms a warm, safe harbor. "Missing someone is a sign of love, darlings. It means your heart is big enough to hold them. And when our hearts hurt, there's a special way we can talk to the one who made our hearts." She had then led them to a sun-drenched corner of the living room, a spot by the grand piano where the afternoon light streamed in, making dust motes dance like tiny stars. It was here that she had introduced them, gently, to the simple comfort of prayer, something their parents had never thought to offer. It wasn't about rules or dogma, it was about connection, comfort, and the quiet strength found in knowing you weren't alone. Elias, in his chauffeur-driven car, was oblivious to these quiet moments of solace unfolding in his home. He checked his watch. He was 20 minutes from home. He frowned, a familiar tension knotting his shoulders. The surprise visit already felt less like a joyful reunion and more like a potentially awkward interruption. What would he even do with them for the rest of the afternoon? Take them to the park? Play a game? His mind felt blank when it came to such simple domestic acts. He was a man of grand gestures, not quiet afternoons. He sighed, adjusting his tie. This was going to be more challenging than he anticipated. Little did he know, the challenge would be far greater than a mere afternoon of enforced playtime. It would be a challenge to his very understanding of home, family, and the true meaning of a life well lived. Elias Thorne believes providing for his children is the ultimate expression of love. Do you think material provision is enough for a child's emotional well-being? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The sleek black sedan pulled silently into the sweeping driveway of the Thorne residence, the crunch of gravel barely audible. Elias stepped out, the air cool and crisp, carrying the distant hum of the city. He nodded curtly at the chauffeur, who offered a polite, practiced smile before discreetly disappearing. The mansion, even in the afternoon sun, seemed to hold its breath, an imposing structure of glass and steel. He let himself in with his private key card, the soft electronic whir of the lock the only sound breaking the silence of the entrance foyer. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing a little. No response. He walked further into the vast open-plan living area, his expensive shoes making no sound on the polished marble floors. His gaze swept over the meticulously arranged furniture, the abstract paintings that cost more than most people's homes, the grand piano that no one ever played. It was all perfect, yet utterly devoid of life. No discarded toys, no stray cushions, no half-finished art projects. He felt a familiar, unsettling sense of unease, a hollowness that even his immense wealth couldn't fill. "But I realize now," Elias continued, the words coming with a painful, liberating honesty, "that in building all this, I may have lost something important, something you seem to have carried with you all your life."
He looked at her then, truly looked at her, his winter sky eyes holding a raw vulnerability she hadn't thought possible. How do you keep that light, Lena May, when life is so hard? Lena May finally spoke, her voice gentle. Mr. Thorne, the light isn't something you keep, it's something you share. And sometimes it's what others shine back at you when your own is dim. She gestured towards the sleeping children. They shine it, Mr. Thorne, brighter than any lamp. His gaze drifted to Lily and Leo, sleeping soundly, peacefully. Lena May's words hung in the air, a quiet revelation. He had spent his life accumulating, controlling, building. She had spent hers nurturing, sharing, believing. And in this storm-bound mansion, the storm within him had finally begun to break, revealing not weakness, but a profound, aching emptiness that only a different kind of light could fill. The mystery of her quiet strength was beginning to unravel, revealing not just a caregiver, but a teacher of life's most essential lessons. Elias reveals a painful aspect of his childhood and his relationship with his father. How does this backstory, combined with Lena May's own story of faith and resilience, begin to shift Elias's perception of strength and vulnerability? Share your thoughts below. The blizzard finally broke. The morning after Lena May shared her story, the sky donned a brilliant, cloudless blue, and the world outside was transformed into a glittering landscape of pristine snow. The silence was absolute, serene. Power was gradually restored, and with it the mansion's modern hum returned. But something fundamental had shifted within its walls, and especially within Elias. The awkwardness he had felt in the children's presence had begun to dissipate, replaced by a tentative curiosity. He found himself lingering in the living room after Lena May had helped the twins get dressed, watching them build a precarious tower of blocks. Instead of retreating to his study, he pulled up a chair, not too close, but close enough to observe. "What are you building?" he asked Lily, his voice a little gruff, still unfamiliar with such simple questions. "A castle for the Ice Queen," Lily declared, adding a sparkly block to the top. "She needs a really high tower to watch over her kingdom. And the dragons are trying to knock it down," Leo interjected, swooping a toy dragon menacingly near the structure. Elias found himself smiling, a small, unpracticed gesture. Are the dragons bad, or just misunderstood? Leo paused, considering this. Some are bad, but some are just lonely. Lena May, watching from the kitchen doorway as she prepared breakfast, felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was what she had prayed for, though never overtly, a crack in the ice. Over the next few days, Elias made conscious efforts to engage. He still spent hours in his home office, working, but now he set aside specific times to be with Lily and Leo. He even joined them for a session of building a massive snowman in the backyard, something he hadn't done since his own distant childhood. His expensive gloves were soon wet, his suit pants splattered with snow, and a faint flush of color touched his usually pale cheeks. "Daddy, look!" Lily shrieked, decorating the snowman with pebbles for eyes. "He looks like a grumpy king." Elias chuckled, a genuine, resonant sound that surprised even himself. Perhaps he just needs a crown. He fashioned a makeshift crown from a snow-covered twig, placing it carefully on the snowman's head. Leo, meanwhile, was attempting to sculpt a snow dragon. "It's hard, Daddy. Its wings keep falling off." Elias knelt beside him, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to make a stronger base. Think about engineering. What holds a bridge up?" Lena May, observing them through the kitchen window, saw not a millionaire and his children, but a father, awkwardly but genuinely connecting. The real shift, however, came during the evenings. Without the distractions of television, which they now limited, the family would gather around the fire, sharing stories. Elias, initially hesitant, found himself recounting tales from his own youth, not the harsh lessons from his father, but anecdotes from summer camps or a particularly challenging science project. He saw the twins' eyes widen, their interest piqued, seeing a glimpse of their father, not as a distant authority, but a person, a boy who had once faced his own adventures and dilemmas.
He headed towards the kitchen, thinking Lena May might be there, perhaps preparing an early dinner or snacks for the twins. The house was too quiet for two 7-year-olds. As he rounded the corner, a soft murmur reached his ears. It wasn't the boisterous shouts of children at play, nor the clatter of kitchenware. It was a gentle, rhythmic hum, almost a whisper, carried on a current of warm air that seemed alien to the sophisticated chill of his home. Curiosity, a rare emotion for Elias outside of business strategy, pulled him forward. The sound was coming from the sunroom, an expansive glass-walled space overlooking a meticulously manicured garden. He paused at the archway, hidden partially by a towering indoor ficus tree, and peered in. And froze. The scene that unfolded before him was a tableau vivant of unexpected intimacy, a moment utterly incongruous with the world he inhabited. In the center of the sunroom, bathed in a golden shaft of afternoon light that made the dust motes dance like tiny ephemeral stars, knelt Lena May Johnson. Her back was to him, her shoulders slightly stooped in a posture of reverence. Her head was bowed, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. And beside her, on either side, knelt Lily and Leo. Lily, usually a whirlwind of restless energy, had her small hands pressed together, her head tilted, eyes squeezed shut in intense concentration. A stray blonde curl had escaped her ponytail and brushed against her cheek. Leo, the adventurous dreamer, had abandoned his usual fidgeting. His head was bowed, almost touching Lena May's arm, his brow furrowed in a surprisingly mature expression. His small hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Lena May's voice, usually a calm, low alto, was now softer, infused with a gentle cadence Elias had never heard. It was not a voice of instruction, but of invitation. She was speaking not to them, but with them. And we thank you for this day, for the sun that shines, for the food that nourishes us, and for the love that holds us, even when we feel alone. Elias felt a cold shock, then a wave of something he couldn't name. Shame? Disbelief? It was like peering into a secret garden, a sacred space he had no right to trespass. His maid, his children, prayer. Lena May continued, guiding their small voices. And we ask for strength, to be kind, to be brave, and to remember that you are always with us, in our hearts, in the whispers of the wind, and in the comfort of those who care for us. Lily repeated the words, her voice a reedy whisper. Always with us, in our hearts. Leo, his voice a little deeper, added with surprising conviction. And in the comfort of those who care for us. His gaze, still closed, seemed to be fixed on Lena May. A tremor ran through Elias. He saw the genuine devotion in their small faces, the complete trust they placed in Lena May. He saw a connection, a bond, an unspoken language of the heart that he had never shared with them. It wasn't about money or gifts or even quality time in the structured way he understood it. It was about something raw, visceral, fundamental. Lena May finished. Amen. Amen. Lily and Leo echoed, their voices bright and clear now, as if a cloud had lifted. They opened their eyes, blinking in the sunlight, and then Lena May smiled at them, a smile so full of warmth and genuine affection that it made Elias's chest ache. It was the smile of a mother, a grandmother, a true caregiver. His children, his own children, looked at her with an adoration that was both heartwarming and utterly devastating to him. Now, Lena May said softly, gently unclenching Leo's hands, "Did that help the worried tummy, Lilybug?" Lily nodded, a small shy smile gracing her lips. "Yes, Lena May, it feels like a warm hug inside." Leo, ever practical, looked up. "Does God hear everything, Lena May, even if it's a secret wish for a new dragon action figure?" Lena May chuckled, a rich melodic sound. "He hears every beat of your heart, little knight, even the silliest wishes. But he also cares about the important ones, like kindness and courage." Elias, still hidden, felt a profound unease settle over him. His children were learning about comfort, about connection, about a higher power, from his housekeeper, not from him. He, Elias Thorne, who could buy them anything, could not give them this. The realization hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath. He had built an empire, yet he hadn't built a spiritual foundation for his own children. He had provided for their bodies, but Lena May was nourishing their souls. Lena May finished. Amen. Amen, Lily and Leo echoed, their voices bright and clear now, as if a cloud had lifted. They opened their eyes, blinking in the sunlight, and then Lena May smiled at them, a smile so full of warmth and genuine affection that it made Elias's chest ache. It was the smile of a mother, a grandmother, a true caregiver. His children, his own children, looked at her with an adoration that was both heartwarming and utterly devastating to him. Now, Lena May said softly, gently unclenching Leo's hands, "Did that help the worried tummy, Lilybug?" Lily nodded, a small shy smile gracing her lips. "Yes, Lena May, it feels like a warm hug inside." Leo, ever practical, looked up. "Does God hear everything, Lena May, even if it's a secret wish for a new dragon action figure?" Lena May chuckled, a rich, melodic sound. "He hears every beat of your heart, little knight, even the silliest wishes. But he also cares about the important ones, like kindness and courage." Elias, still hidden, felt a profound unease settle over him. His children were learning about comfort, about connection, about a higher power, from his housekeeper, not from him. He, Elias Thorne, who could buy them anything, could not give them this. The realization hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath. He had built an empire, yet he hadn't built a spiritual foundation for his own children. He had provided for their bodies, but Lena May was nourishing their souls. He watched for another moment as Lena May gently ruffled Leo's hair and hugged Lily close. The simple, tender gesture spoke volumes. This was not a transaction, this was love. A love he had been too busy, too blind to provide. He felt a sudden, inexplicable tightening in his throat, a burning behind his eyes that he quickly suppressed. Men like him didn't cry. Men like him commanded. But in this moment, witnessing this unexpected, quiet act of faith and love, Elias Thorne felt utterly, completely powerless. His carefully constructed world, where logic and material success reigned supreme, had just been rattled to its core by the softest of whispers. He turned, silently retreating before he could be seen, the click of the front door his only betrayal. He needed to be alone. He needed to process this seismic shift in his understanding of everything. Elias is shocked to find his maid teaching his children to pray. What do you think prompted Lena May to do this, and what does it reveal about the emotional environment of the Thorne household? Share your thoughts below. Elias found himself back in the sterile grandeur of his study, the familiar scent of leather and old books doing little to calm the turbulent sea of emotions churning within him. He poured himself a glass of amber liquid, a single malt scotch he usually reserved for closing multi-million-dollar deals. He stared out the panoramic window at the city below, a shimmering tapestry of lights and ambition, a world he understood, a world he dominated. But the image of his children, small and earnest, hands clasped in prayer with Lena May, kept superimposing itself over the glittering skyline. He felt a confusing cocktail of emotions, indignation, curiosity, a strange flicker of envy, and a deep, unsettling discomfort. Prayer? In his house? He wasn't overtly religious. He believed in hard work, in tangible data, in tangible results. Faith was an abstraction, a crutch for the weak perhaps, or a social convention for others. But for his children?
His children, who were meant to be raised with a keen intellect and a pragmatic understanding of the world, shielded from anything that couldn't be quantified. He tried to intellectualize it, to dismiss it. Lena May was an employee. She had crossed a line, albeit a well-meaning one. He was paying her to clean, to manage the household, to ensure the children's physical well-being. Spiritual instruction was not in her job description. He would have to address it, firmly but politely. A conversation, a clear boundary. Yet a subtle thread of resistance within him tugged back. He remembered Lily's face, peaceful and comforted. He remembered Leo's unexpected conviction, asking about God hearing his silly wishes. They hadn't looked coerced, they had looked cherished. And that smile Lena May had given them, it was a smile, he realized, he had never seen directed at him. Not from his children, not with such unreserved warmth. He took a long swallow of scotch, the burn doing little to quell the internal fire. He was Elias Thorne. He didn't let emotions dictate his decisions. He certainly didn't let a housekeeper's quiet act of devotion unravel his carefully constructed worldview. He would speak to her tomorrow, once he'd formulated a rational, detached approach. This was about professionalism, not whatever this knot in his chest was. Meanwhile, downstairs, Lena May finished tidying the sunroom, humming a soft spiritual. She felt a peaceful satisfaction in her heart. The children, after their prayer and a shared snack of freshly baked cookies, were now engrossed in a board game, their laughter finally ringing through the house, a joyous sound she cherished. She knew, deep in her bones, that she had done nothing wrong. She had merely offered comfort and connection to two children who yearned for it. But a prickle of unease had begun to form beneath her calm exterior. Elias Thorne was home. She hadn't expected him. The chauffeur had confirmed his car was in the garage. He hadn't announced his presence. Had he seen them? The thought sent a jolt of anxiety through her. Mr. Thorne was a private man, a man of rigid expectations. Her teaching the children prayer might be seen as overstepping. She knew her place, she truly did. Her role was to care for the house and the children within the parameters set by the family. But her conscience, her heart, had pushed her slightly beyond those lines. She walked into the kitchen, her movements deliberate, her mind replaying the afternoon. Had she been wrong? Was it her place? She had simply responded to Lily's anxious tummy, to Leo's searching questions. They were seeking something, and she had offered what she knew, what had always sustained her. Her faith wasn't about imposing, it was about sharing light when she saw shadows.
Later that evening, after the twins were tucked into bed, their small voices calling out, "Good night, Lena May," with a warmth that touched her soul, she prepared a light dinner for Elias. She knew his preferences. Simple, healthy, impeccably presented. She placed the covered plate on the dining table, a single, elegant setting. He rarely ate with the children, or with her. As she was about to retreat, Elias appeared in the doorway, a ghost in his own house. He was still in his suit, his tie loosened, a glass of scotch in his hand. His gaze was direct, unwavering, making Lena May's heart thump a little faster. This was it. "Lena May," he began, his voice flat, devoid of its usual clipped efficiency, but still carrying the weight of authority. "Mr. Thorne," she replied, her own voice steady, though her hands clasped behind her back were slightly damp. He walked into the dining room, circling the table, not quite looking at her, but looking through her. "I arrived earlier than expected this afternoon." A quiet affirmation. "Yes, Mr. Thorne." He stopped, facing the window, his back to her. "I understand you were in the sunroom with Lily and Leo." "Yes, sir, we were." A pause, thick with unspoken implications. The silence stretched, tense, almost painful. Lena May waited, bracing herself. "And you were teaching them prayer?" The words were carefully chosen, not accusatory, but imbued with a clear demand for explanation. Lena May took a deep breath. The children had some worries, Mr. Thorne. Lily with her tummy, and Leo with some thoughts about brave knights and missing family. I offered them comfort in the way I know best. She kept her voice calm, respectful, yet firm. She would not apologize for offering solace. Elias turned then, his eyes, those cold winter sky eyes, finally meeting hers. My children have therapists for worries. They have tutors for their education. I provide all they need. Spiritual guidance, Lena May, is not part of their curriculum, nor is it, if I may be so blunt, part of your role here. The words stung, but Lena May met his gaze without flinching. With all due respect, Mr. Thorne, sometimes a child's heart needs more than a therapist or a tutor. Sometimes they just need to know they're not alone, and that there's hope beyond what they can see or touch. That's what I offered them. Hope is a valuable commodity, Lena May, but it is not something I pay you to provide. My children are to be raised with reason, with a clear understanding of the world as it is, not with fables. His voice sharpened, a hint of his boardroom persona emerging. Lena May felt a quiet resolve harden within her. Mr. Thorne, a child's imagination, their spirit, is not a fable. It's as real as the air they breathe. And sometimes it's what sustains them when everything else feels uncertain. Hope is a valuable commodity, Lena May, but it is not something I pay you to provide. My children are to be raised with reason, with a clear understanding of the world as it is, not with fables. His voice sharpened, a hint of his boardroom persona emerging. Lena May felt a quiet resolve harden within her. Mr. Thorne, a child's imagination, their spirit, is not a fable. It's as real as the air they breathe. And sometimes it's what sustains them when everything else feels uncertain. She knew she was pushing, but she couldn't back down, not on this. Elias ran a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair, a rare sign of agitation. He paced once, then stopped, facing her again. I appreciate your concern, Lena May, I truly do, but I must insist. My children's upbringing is my prerogative. I trust you understand. It was a dismissal, thinly veiled as a polite request. Lena May understood perfectly. It was an order. Her heart sank, not for herself, but for the children. She saw the emotional wall Elias had built, solid and impenetrable. She nodded, her dignity intact. As you wish, Mr. Thorne. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. And, Lena May, I don't want this to be a point of contention. You are a valued member of my staff. I simply ask for adherence to the established boundaries. She merely inclined her head, then walked away, leaving him alone in the gleaming dining room. He had drawn his line, firm and unyielding. But as he watched her go, a small, unwelcome voice in the back of Elias's mind whispered, "And what if your boundaries are precisely what's keeping them, and you, from what they truly need?" He pushed the thought away, grabbing his glass and turning back to the window. He preferred the cold, hard facts of business to the confusing, messy emotions of the heart. This was simply a misunderstanding, now corrected. Or so he hoped. Elias and Lena May clash over the prayer. What do you think are the core values each character is trying to protect? And why is this particular issue such a point of resistance for both of them? Share your thoughts below. The following morning dawned under a sky the color of bruised plums, heavy with the promise of a winter storm. Elias, despite his insistence on boundaries, found himself strangely preoccupied. He had expected to feel a sense of relief after his conversation with Lena May, a return to his carefully maintained equilibrium. Instead, a faint echo of discomfort lingered, a subtle discord in the symphony of his perfectly ordered life. He left for his office early, eager to immerse himself in the familiar, quantifiable world of finance, hoping it would drown out the lingering image of his children's praying faces.
Lena May, for her part, moved through her morning routines with her usual quiet efficiency, but her heart felt heavy. She adhered strictly to Elias's directive, consciously avoiding any mention of prayer or spiritual matters with the children. When Lily, her brow furrowed, asked, "Lena May, can we pray for Daddy's airplane not to crash?" Lena May gently redirected, "Daddy's very careful, Sweet Pea, and he has the best pilots. Let's send him good thoughts and wish him a safe day." The words felt hollow to her, a small betrayal of her own convictions and, she felt, of the children's need. She saw a flicker of disappointment in Lily's eyes, and Leo's usually bright demeanor dimmed just a shade. The storm, however, had other plans. By mid-morning, the leaden sky burst, unleashing a torrential downpour that quickly escalated into a full-blown blizzard. News alerts buzzed with warnings, schools closing, roads becoming impassable, power outages spreading across the city. Elias's phone rang, a call from his head of security. "Mr. Thorne, the storm is intensifying rapidly. All non-essential personnel are being sent home. The authorities are advising against travel. We've got reports of downed power lines and trees blocking major arteries. It would be advisable for you to remain at the mansion. We can't guarantee safe passage back to the office later." Elias cursed under his breath. Trapped. In his own home, with his children, and Lena May. The thought, ironically, felt more confining than any corporate crisis. He grudgingly agreed, informing his assistant to reroute all urgent communications to his home office. By early afternoon, the mansion, usually a beacon of modern convenience, began to feel the storm's bite. The lights flickered, then died. The heating system sputtered into silence. Outside, the world transformed into a swirling vortex of white, the meticulously manicured garden disappearing under drifts of snow. The silence of the power outage was profound, broken only by the howl of the wind and the distant creaks of the old house. Lena May immediately sprang into action. She located flashlights, lit emergency candles, and began gathering blankets from the linen closets. She moved with a practiced calm, her years of experience in various homes making her adept at handling such situations. Lily and Leo, initially excited by the novelty of the dark adventure, soon grew restless and a little scared in the deepening gloom. "It's so cold, Lena May," Lily whimpered, hugging a blanket around herself. "And dark," Leo added, his adventurous spirit wavering. "It's all right, darlings," Lena May soothed, her voice a warm balm. "We just need to make our own cozy nest." She led them to the vast living room, where the fireplace, normally an aesthetic feature, now became their hearth. She expertly built a crackling fire, the flames casting dancing shadows on the high walls, bringing a surprising warmth and a sense of primitive comfort. Elias, who had retreated to his unheated study, his laptop battery dwindling, emerged, drawn by the flickering light and the scent of wood smoke. He found Lena May surrounded by the twins, who were now nestled on oversized cushions and blankets near the fire, sipping hot chocolate she had miraculously managed to prepare on a gas stove. Their faces, illuminated by the firelight, looked peaceful, content. Lena May was telling them a story, her voice low and melodic, about a brave little robin who found shelter in the harshest winter. He felt like an intruder, a giant shadow disrupting their small warm circle. Lena May looked up, her gaze steady. "Mr. Thorne, we're making the best of it. Would you like some hot chocolate? It might help with the chill." He hesitated. Hot chocolate? He hadn't had hot chocolate in decades. "No, thank you, Lena May," he said, his voice stiffer than he intended. "I'll just check on something." He settled into an armchair a little distance from the fire, the chill quickly seeping into his bones. He watched them, pretending to examine his uncharged phone. He observed Lena May's patience as Lily asked 100 questions about the robin, and Leo critiqued the story's strategic choices. He saw the genuine, unforced laughter, the easy intimacy. This was not the professional Lena May he knew. This was Lena May the nurturer, the storyteller, the comforter. As the hours passed, trapped by the relentless blizzard, Elias had no choice but to absorb the atmosphere. He heard Lena May teach the children simple games that didn't require electricity, saw her create shadow puppets on the wall,
listened as she encouraged them to draw pictures of what they could see outside or what they imagined. The mansion, usually a silent mausoleum of his ambition, slowly filled with the sound of children's voices, the crackle of fire, and Lena May's gentle responses. Later, as twilight deepened, Lena May began to prepare a simple dinner, using what she could find and cook on the gas stove. The aroma of a hearty vegetable stew began to fill the living room, a scent Elias hadn't associated with his home in years. He found himself inexplicably drawn to the kitchen, hovering awkwardly. "Is there anything I can do, Lena May?" he asked, feeling foolish the moment the words left his mouth. He hadn't cooked a meal in his life. Lena May smiled, a small, genuine smile that softened her features. "You could chop these carrots, if you're careful." She handed him a knife and a bowl of peeled carrots. He fumbled with the knife, his hands, accustomed to signing multi-million-dollar contracts, feeling clumsy and inept. He nearly cut himself. Lena May, without a word, gently took the knife, adjusted his grip, and showed him the correct, safer way to hold it. Her fingers, calloused but warm, brushed against his. A jolt, unexpected, went through him. "Like this, Mr. Thorne. Slow and steady." He tried again, awkwardly slicing the carrots, his focus intensely on the task. He felt a strange mix of embarrassment and a faint, almost pleasant surprise. He was doing something ordinary, something useful for his children, for their dinner, with his maid. As they ate by firelight, the stew surprisingly delicious, the forced proximity began to chip away at the invisible walls Elias had erected. He saw the genuine worry in Lena May's eyes when Leo coughed, the way she effortlessly made the children feel safe and cared for. He saw the fear in Lily's eyes when the wind howled particularly loud, and how she instinctively reached for Lena May's hand, not his. He was still the provider, the authority figure, but in the face of nature's power, he was merely another person, cold and somewhat helpless, in need of the warmth and practical comfort Lena May so naturally provided. The silence between him and Lena May was no longer tense. It was filled with the sounds of the children and the unspoken acknowledgement of shared endurance. And in that shared space, a different kind of understanding began to slowly, reluctantly take root. The blizzard forces Elias into close quarters with Lena May and his children. How do you think this forced proximity impacts Elias, challenging his usual reliance on control and material comfort? Share your insights in the comments. The blizzard raged for another full day, pinning Elias, Lena May, Lily, and Leo within the vast, dark mansion. Without electricity, the usual distractions of screens and schedules vanished, leaving behind a raw, unfiltered space. Elias, stripped of his usual tools of control, found himself observing, listening, and for the first time in a long while, truly seeing. He watched Lena May mend a tear in Leo's worn teddy bear with surprising dexterity, humming a soft, wordless tune. He saw her patience as she helped Lily draw a detailed map of a fantastical snow kingdom, listening intently to every imaginative detail. His own attempts at engagement were clumsy. He tried to read to them from a forgotten hardcover book he found, but his voice, accustomed to commanding boardrooms, sounded stiff and unfamiliar when delivering children's stories. Lily and Leo listened politely, but their eyes kept drifting back to Lena May, who was always ready with an encouraging smile or a shared chuckle. He felt a pang, not of resentment, but of an unfamiliar yearning. He wanted to be that source of comfort, that confidant. One evening, huddled around the roaring fireplace, the shadows long and dancing, Lily made a request. "Lena May, can you tell us a story from when you were little, a really true one?" Lena May hesitated, glancing at Elias, who was pretending to read an old business journal by candlelight, but was, in fact, listening intently. "Well now, what kind of story do you want, Sweet Pea?" "A sad one that turned happy," Leo declared, ever the dramatist. Lena May sighed softly, her gaze distant, fixed on the dancing flames. "Well, there was a time, a long, long time ago, when I was a little girl, maybe just a bit older than you, Lily. My mama, she was a seamstress, worked very hard. And my daddy, he worked in the steel mills, just like your daddy, Mr. Thorne, building things for the world." She paused, a gentle smile playing on her lips. "He was a kind, strong man. Taught me how to tie knots and fix broken things. Said a woman should always know how to stand on her own 2 feet. Elias stiffened slightly at the casual comparison to his own father, a man he hadn't thought about in years, not truly. His father, a harsh, driven man, had pushed Elias relentlessly, teaching him that softness was weakness, that only achievement mattered. The contrast with Lena May's warm memory was stark. One winter, Lena May continued, her voice growing softer, the mills, they shut down, for a long time. There wasn't much work and not much food. My mama, she cried sometimes when she thought we were asleep, but she always put on a brave face in the morning. And my daddy, he got quiet, like a deep well. She touched her chest, over her heart. He tried to keep us warm, to find odd jobs, but it was hard. Lily and Leo listened, rapt. Elias, too, found himself completely absorbed, the old business journal forgotten in his lap. One day, Mama was sick, very sick, and there was no money for medicine. I remember feeling so scared, Lily, like the whole world was too big, and I was just a tiny boat tossed on a rough sea. Her eyes met Elias's for a fleeting moment, a shared understanding passing between them, a glimpse into the raw fear of a helpless child. Elias had felt that fear too, though in a different context. A cold, distant fear of failing his father's impossible standards, of not being good enough. He had buried it deep, masked it with ambition. My daddy, he sat by Mama's bed, holding her hand. And I just knelt by my little bed. I remembered what my grandmother had taught me about talking to God. And I asked him, just like you, Leo, in my deepest, most secret whisper, to please, please make my Mama well. A profound silence descended, broken only by the crackle of the fire. And then what happened, Lena May? Lily whispered, her eyes wide. Lena May smiled, a radiant, quiet joy. Well, the very next morning, a neighbor, a kind lady from church, showed up with a basket, and in it was a chicken stew and medicine. She said she just felt called to help. And my Mama, she started to get better, slowly but surely. Lena May looked at the twins, her eyes shining. It taught me that even in the darkest, coldest times, there's always a light, always help, and that sometimes the quietest prayers are the loudest in heaven. She didn't preach, she merely shared a memory, a testament. But the power of her story resonated in the quiet room. Lily looked at her hands, then clasped them together, just as Lena May had taught her. Leo, his head resting against Lena May's arm, whispered, "So God really does hear you, even if it's a secret?" "He hears," Lena May affirmed, stroking his hair. "He always hears." Elias felt a tightness in his throat, a familiar ache that spoke of old wounds, long suppressed. He had grown up without such stories, without such simple, unwavering faith. His childhood had been a proving ground, a constant battle to earn his father's approval, which never truly came. He had learned to rely only on himself, on his own strength, to conquer his fears. And in doing so, he had become emotionally armored, distant. Lena May's story, so simple, so profound, spoke of a different kind of strength, a resilience born not of self-reliance, but of connection and faith. Later that night, as the children finally drifted off to sleep, curled up in their blanket nests near the fire, Elias found himself alone with Lena May. The storm outside had begun to subside, the wind's howl softening to a mournful sigh. "Lena May," Elias said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it, almost hesitant. She turned, her face illuminated by the dying embers. "Yes, Mr. Thorne? Your story, about your father. My father was a steel man, too, but he wasn't like yours." The words were an admission, a crack in his carefully constructed facade. He felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to share, to reveal the source of his own emotional barrenness. "He always told me that showing emotion was a weakness," Elias continued, his gaze fixed on the flames. that hard work was the only thing that truly mattered. I spent my whole life trying to prove myself to him, even after he was gone. He gestured vaguely around the opulent living room. All of this, it was for him. To show him I was strong, that I could build something even bigger than he ever imagined. Lena May listened, her face unreadable, but her eyes filled with a deep, compassionate understanding. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes. She simply heard him.
But I realize now, Elias continued, the words coming with a painful, liberating honesty, that in building all this, I may have lost something important, something you seem to have carried with you all your life. He looked at her then, truly looked at her, his winter sky eyes holding a raw vulnerability she hadn't thought possible. How do you keep that light, Lena May, when life is so hard? Lena May finally spoke, her voice gentle. Mr. Thorne, the light isn't something you keep, it's something you share. And sometimes it's what others shine back at you when your own is dim. She gestured towards the sleeping children. They shine it, Mr. Thorne, brighter than any lamp. His gaze drifted to Lily and Leo, sleeping soundly, peacefully. Lena May's words hung in the air, a quiet revelation. He had spent his life accumulating, controlling, building. She had spent hers nurturing, sharing, believing. And in this storm-bound mansion, the storm within him had finally begun to break, revealing not weakness, but a profound, aching emptiness that only a different kind of light could fill. The mystery of her quiet strength was beginning to unravel, revealing not just a caregiver, but a teacher of life's most essential lessons. Elias reveals a painful aspect of his childhood and his relationship with his father. How does this backstory, combined with Lena May's own story of faith and resilience, begin to shift Elias's perception of strength and vulnerability? Share your thoughts below. The blizzard finally broke. The morning after Lena May shared her story, the sky donned a brilliant, cloudless blue, and the world outside was transformed into a glittering landscape of pristine snow. The silence was absolute, serene. Power was gradually restored, and with it the mansion's modern hum returned. But something fundamental had shifted within its walls, and especially within Elias. The awkwardness he had felt in the children's presence had begun to dissipate, replaced by a tentative curiosity. He found himself lingering in the living room after Lena May had helped the twins get dressed, watching them build a precarious tower of blocks. Instead of retreating to his study, he pulled up a chair, not too close, but close enough to observe. "What are you building?" he asked Lily, his voice a little gruff, still unfamiliar with such simple questions. "A castle for the Ice Queen," Lily declared, adding a sparkly block to the top. "She needs a really high tower to watch over her kingdom. And the dragons are trying to knock it down," Leo interjected, swooping a toy dragon menacingly near the structure. Elias found himself smiling, a small, unpracticed gesture. Are the dragons bad, or just misunderstood? Leo paused, considering this. Some are bad, but some are just lonely. Lena May, watching from the kitchen doorway as she prepared breakfast, felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was what she had prayed for, though never overtly, a crack in the ice. Over the next few days, Elias made conscious efforts to engage. He still spent hours in his home office, working, but now he set aside specific times to be with Lily and Leo. He even joined them for a session of building a massive snowman in the backyard, something he hadn't done since his own distant childhood. His expensive gloves were soon wet, his suit pants splattered with snow, and a faint flush of color touched his usually pale cheeks. "Daddy, look!" Lily shrieked, decorating the snowman with pebbles for eyes. "He looks like a grumpy king." Elias chuckled, a genuine, resonant sound that surprised even himself. Perhaps he just needs a crown. He fashioned a makeshift crown from a snow-covered twig, placing it carefully on the snowman's head. Leo, meanwhile, was attempting to sculpt a snow dragon. "It's hard, Daddy. Its wings keep falling off." Elias knelt beside him, his brow furrowed in concentration. We need to make a stronger base. Think about engineering. What holds a bridge up? Lena May, observing them through the kitchen window, saw not a millionaire and his children, but a father, awkwardly but genuinely connecting. The real shift, however, came during the evenings. Without the distractions of television, which they now limited, the family would gather around the fire, sharing stories. Elias, initially hesitant, found himself recounting tales from his own youth, not the harsh lessons from his father, but anecdotes from summer camps or a particularly challenging science project. He saw the twins' eyes widen, their interest piqued, seeing a glimpse of their father, not as a distant authority, but a person, a boy who had once faced his own adventures and dilemmas.
One evening, after Lena May had served a simple, comforting dinner of baked chicken and roasted vegetables, Elias cleared his throat. "Lena May, I wanted to thank you for your story the other night and for everything." He looked directly at her, his gaze softer now, less piercing. Lena May met his eyes, a small, knowing smile on her lips. "No need for thanks, Mr. Thorne. It's my pleasure to see the children happy." "It's more than that," Elias insisted, a surprising earnestness in his voice. "You provide a kind of warmth that I didn't realize was missing. Not just for them, but for the house, for me." He felt a blush creep up his neck, unused to such open admissions. I realize now that my father's way wasn't the only way, and that perhaps what I thought was strength was simply absence." Lena May nodded, her understanding deep and silent. "It takes a different kind of strength to admit that, Mr. Thorne. The strongest trees bend with the wind. They don't break." Later that night, as Elias tucked Lily and Leo into bed, Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright. "Daddy," she whispered, "can we say our nighttime prayer with Lena May? She taught us a really nice one." Elias hesitated for only a moment. The words from his earlier conversation with Lena May echoed in his mind, his demand for adherence to boundaries. But looking at Lily's hopeful face and remembering Lena May's story, his resistance crumbled. "Yes, sweet pea," he said, his voice a little thick. "Let's ask Lena May if she has time." Lena May, when asked, came to their bedside. She sat between the two beds, and Lily and Leo instinctively reached for her hands, and then, surprisingly, for Elias's. He felt their small, warm fingers clasp around his, and a profound sense of peace settled over him. He closed his eyes as Lena May began the simple, comforting prayer she had taught them, her voice a soft lullaby of faith and love. "And we ask for strength, to be kind, to be brave, and to remember that you are always with us, in our hearts, in the whispers of the wind, and in the comfort of those who care for us." Elias didn't speak the words, but he listened, truly listened. He felt the warmth of his children's hands, the quiet strength of Lena May's presence. For the first time, he felt a flicker of belonging, a fragile but real bond connecting him not just to his children, but to something larger, something he had long denied. It was a moment of profound, quiet healing. He wasn't praying yet, not truly, but he was open, he was present. And in that vulnerability, a new kind of love, unexpected and deeply needed, began to bloom. The cold, sterile mansion now truly felt like a home, filled with the warmth of genuine human connection. Now that Elias has begun to participate in family moments and even joins in a prayer, how do these small acts of connection impact his internal world and the relationships within the family? What does this emotional bonding signify for his character arc? Share your thoughts below. The fragile peace that had settled over the Thorne mansion, nurtured during the blizzard's isolation, felt almost like a dream once the routines of the outside world fully returned. Elias, though undeniably changed, still bore the ingrained habits of a lifetime. He returned to his office with renewed vigor, now balancing his corporate demands with dedicated time for his children.
He continued to participate in their bedtime prayers, a quiet ritual that had become precious to him. He found himself thinking of Lena May often, not just as an employee, but as a wise presence, a guardian of the emotional hearth he was now learning to tend. But the world Elias inhabited was unforgiving, accustomed to his singular focus. His executive team, accustomed to his relentless drive, noticed a subtle shift. Meetings ended on time. His phone was occasionally ignored past a certain hour, and he even, on one memorable occasion, rescheduled a late-night call to be home for Lily's big show-and-tell rehearsal. Whispers began among the senior staff. He's losing his edge, softening. What's distracting him? The whispers soon reached the ears of Alastair Finch, Elias's ambitious and ruthless second-in-command. Finch saw Elias's newfound softness not as growth, but as weakness, an opportunity. He had always resented Lena May, viewing her as an old-fashioned intrusion in the sleek, modern Thorne household. He'd seen her quiet influence on the children, a warmth he found utterly superfluous and unprofessional. One crisp afternoon, Finch arrived at the mansion unannounced, supposedly to deliver urgent documents for Elias to sign. Elias was still at the office, caught in a protracted negotiation. Finch found Lena May in the garden, helping Lily and Leo plant a small herb garden, their hands happily grubby with earth. Lena May's deep, melodic laughter drifted through the air as Leo recounted a particularly daring adventure of a worm.
Finch, a man whose tailored suits seemed to exude a permanent chill, watched for a moment, his lip curling in disdain. This was the distraction, this simple, earthy woman, instilling frivolous values in the heirs of Thorne Enterprises. "Lena May!" he called out. Lena May looked up, her smile fading as she recognized Finch. She knew his type, cold, calculating, driven. "Mr. Finch, is everything all right?" "Everything is perfectly fine, Lena May," he said, walking closer, his eyes sweeping over the children, then resting on Lena May with an icy glint. "Though I must say, I am surprised to find the children engaged in this." He gestured dismissively at the herb garden. "And you, teaching them such quaint activities." Lily and Leo, sensing the shift in tone, shrank back slightly, clutching Lena May's apron. Lena May straightened, her dignity unwavering. "We are simply enjoying the afternoon, Mr. Finch, learning about nature." "Indeed," Finch sneered. "I understand you also teach them about spiritual matters, about prayer?" Lena May's spine stiffened. "I offer comfort when the children need it, Mr. Finch, that is all." "Comfort," Finch scoffed. "Or perhaps an undue influence. Mr. Thorne is a very busy man, Lena May. He needs his household to run with precision, not sentimentality. He needs his children to be prepared for the real world, not filled with superstitions." Lily, overhearing, tugged on Lena May's apron. "Prayer isn't silly. It makes my tummy feel better." Finch's cold gaze landed on Lily. "Children should be seen and not heard, little girl. And what's good for your tummy is a healthy diet, not fanciful tales." Lena May stepped forward, placing herself subtly between Finch and the children. "Mr. Finch, I believe this conversation is inappropriate in front of the children, and it is certainly not your place to question my methods or Mr. Thorne's decisions regarding his family." Finch's face hardened. "Oh, but it is my place, Lena May. As Mr. Thorne's most trusted advisor, I am concerned about anything that distracts him, or, more importantly, might compromise the legacy of Thorne Enterprises. And frankly, your influence is becoming a liability." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper meant only for her. "I suggest you reconsider your actions, Lena May, unless you wish to find yourself without a position. Mr. Thorne values loyalty and discretion above all else." Before Lena May could respond, Elias's chauffeur-driven car pulled into the driveway. Finch straightened, a veneer of polite professionalism snapping back into place just as Elias stepped out, looking tired but determined. He saw the tense tableau, Finch, Lena May, and his 2 children huddled protectively around her. A cold premonition settled in his gut. "Alistair, what are you doing here?" Elias asked, his gaze narrowing at the unusual sight. Finch plastered on a sincere smile. "Elias, just dropping off some urgent documents, and I happened to notice a rather concerning situation." He nodded towards Lena May and the children. "It seems Lena May is still imparting her unique brand of comfort to the children. I just overheard her telling them that prayer isn't silly. And frankly, Elias, with all due respect, it raises questions about her professionalism and indeed her judgment. This kind of influence could be problematic for their future and for your image." Elias felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp. Not just at Finch's audacious interference, but at the way his trusted advisor had twisted Lena May's genuine kindness into something insidious. Yet Finch's words, phrased as concern for his image and legacy, struck a chord of fear in Elias. The old Elias would have immediately agreed, upholding the pragmatic, unfeeling corporate facade. The new Elias, however, saw the fear in Lily's eyes, the defensiveness in Leo's stance, and the quiet dignity in Lena May's rigid posture, and his heart screamed. "Alistair, that is enough," Elias said, his voice low, but carrying an unmistakable edge of authority. "My household matters are my own concern." Finch, emboldened, pressed on, clearly believing he had an ally in the old Elias. "Elias, think about it, the perception, the twins being taught such unsophisticated beliefs. What if this gets out? It could affect your standing, the company's reputation. Perhaps it's time to reconsider Lena May's position, for everyone's sake." The words hung in the air, a poisoned dart aimed directly at the heart of the fragile bond that had formed. Lily flinched, her composure finally breaking, a flicker of hurt in her eyes. Lily burst into tears, clinging to Lena May's leg. Leo, unusually quiet, glared at Finch with all the intensity of a small, betrayed warrior. Elias's gaze flickered between Finch's smug certainty and Lena May's quiet devastation. He saw the genuine distress of his children. "Alistair, what are you doing here?" Elias asked, his gaze narrowing at the unusual sight. Finch plastered on a sincere smile. "Elias, just dropping off some urgent documents, and I happened to notice a rather concerning situation." He nodded towards Lena May and the children. "It seems Lena May is still imparting her unique brand of comfort to the children. I just overheard her telling them that prayer isn't silly. And frankly, Elias, with all due respect, it raises questions about her professionalism and indeed her judgment. This kind of influence could be problematic for their future and for your image." Elias felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp. Not just at Finch's audacious interference, but at the way his trusted advisor had twisted Lena May's genuine kindness into something insidious. Yet Finch's words, phrased as concern for his image and legacy, struck a chord of fear in Elias. The old Elias would have immediately agreed, upholding the pragmatic, unfeeling corporate facade. The new Elias, however, saw the fear in Lily's eyes, the defensiveness in Leo's stance, and the quiet dignity in Lena May's rigid posture, and his heart screamed. "Alistair, that is enough," Elias said, his voice low, but carrying an unmistakable edge of authority. "My household matters are my own concern." Finch, emboldened, pressed on, clearly believing he had an ally in the old Elias. "Elias, think about it, the perception, the twins being taught such unsophisticated beliefs. What if this gets out? It could affect your standing, the company's reputation. Perhaps it's time to reconsider Lena May's position, for everyone's sake." The words hung in the air, a poisoned dart aimed directly at the heart of the fragile bond that had formed. Lily flinched, her composure finally breaking, a flicker of hurt in her eyes. Lily burst into tears, clinging to Lena May's leg. Leo, unusually quiet, glared at Finch with all the intensity of a small, betrayed warrior. Elias's gaze flickered between Finch's smug certainty and Lena May's quiet devastation. He saw the genuine distress of his children. He felt torn, pulled between the demanding world he had always inhabited and the nascent, precious emotional reality he was just beginning to discover. The old fears of weakness, of public perception, of not being enough in the world's eyes surfaced, cold and sharp. In that moment of conflict, under the weight of Finch's calculated words and his own deep-seated anxieties, Elias made a terrible mistake. He didn't defend Lena May immediately. He didn't dismiss Finch outright. He hesitated. "Alistair, perhaps you've overstepped," Elias began, his voice laced with uncertainty. "However, your concerns are noted. Lena May, I think perhaps it would be best if you took a few days off, just until things settle." The words were meant as a compromise, a temporary reprieve. But to Lena May, they landed like a betrayal. The man who had listened to her story, who had joined their prayers, was now, under pressure, casting her aside. Her eyes, filled with deep, profound hurt, met Elias's. The fragile bond, the unspoken understanding, the growing trust, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. Without a word, she gently detached Lily's clutching fingers, her face a mask of sorrow. "As you wish, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice barely a whisper, devoid of its usual warmth. Then she turned and walked away, her back straight, her head held high, leaving Elias standing with a triumphant Finch, 2 weeping children, and the bitter taste of his own cowardice in his mouth. The silence that followed her departure was far colder than any blizzard. He had chosen the corporate facade over human connection, and the cost was immediate and devastating. Alistair Finch's calculated interference shatters the growing bond between Elias, Lena May, and the children. Why do you think Elias hesitates and ultimately asks Lena May to leave, despite his recent emotional breakthroughs? How does this moment reflect his internal conflict? The departure of Lena May left an immediate gaping void in the Thorne mansion. The silence, once a symbol of Elias's control, now felt oppressive, heavy with absence. Lily and Leo, bereft and confused, retreated into themselves. Lily stopped asking questions, her usual sparkle replaced by a dull sadness. Leo, always the more outwardly expressive, lashed out, throwing tantrums, refusing to eat, and demanding endlessly, "Where's Lena May? When is she coming back?" Elias tried to fill the void, awkwardly, desperately. He hired a new housekeeper, a stern woman who followed instructions perfectly but radiated no warmth. He spent more time at home, canceled meetings, even brought work to the living room, trying to be present. He bought them new toys, organized playdates, and took them to exclusive amusement parks. But the children remained distant, their small hearts visibly broken. Their bedtime prayers, which Elias now led, felt hollow without Lena May's comforting presence. The words, once infused with a nascent hope, now felt like empty echoes. The house, despite the return of its usual hum, felt colder than it had during the blizzard. Elias found himself wandering its vast rooms, a profound loneliness settling over him, heavier than any corporate burden. Finch's words, intended to consolidate Elias's power, had instead stripped him bare. He realized with crushing clarity that in trying to protect his image and legacy, he had destroyed the most precious thing he was just beginning to build: a connection with his children, and the genuine, unexpected love that Lena May had brought into their lives. One evening, Elias found Lily clutching a faded drawing, a crude crayon sketch of Lily and Leo holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Tears streamed down her face.
"I miss her, Daddy," she sobbed, her small voice breaking. "She made everything feel safe. You made her go away." Her words were a dagger to his heart. He saw the truth in her innocent accusation. He had made her go away. He had chosen the empty promises of ambition over the tangible warmth of love. He had betrayed not only Lena May, but his own children, and the burgeoning, vulnerable part of himself that had dared to hope for something more. He couldn't sleep that night. He paced his study, the city lights reflecting his restless agony. He remembered Lena May's quiet strength, her story of faith, her gentle hands. He recalled her words, "The strongest trees bend with the wind, they don't break." He had broken. He had bent to Finch's will, sacrificing what truly mattered. He saw now that Finch and the world he represented offered only a cold, transactional kind of power, utterly devoid of the warmth and meaning that Lena May embodied. The next morning, Elias made a series of decisive, unprecedented phone calls. He summoned Alastair Finch to his office, not for a meeting, but for a termination. Finch, stunned and furious, tried to argue, but Elias's gaze, though no longer cold, was resolute.
Your loyalty was to my image, Alastair, not to my values. And my values have changed. You are no longer needed. Then Elias did something even more extraordinary. He left his office in the middle of a workday, drove through the city, and found himself pulling up to Lena May's modest, welcoming home. His heart pounded with a mix of trepidation and desperate hope. He saw her in her small garden, tending to vibrant marigolds, her back to him. "Lena May?" he called out, his voice hoarse, uncertain. She turned, her eyes widening slightly in surprise, then hardening with a quiet reserve. "Mr. Thorne, what brings you here?" Her tone was polite, professional, but the warmth was gone. Elias walked towards her, his hands clasped, a millionaire unaccustomed to such profound humility. "Lena May, I came to apologize, profoundly. I was wrong, terribly wrong. I let fear and an old, misguided sense of what matters cloud my judgment. I betrayed you, and more importantly, I betrayed my children." He looked at her, his eyes pleading, stripped of all arrogance. "Lily and Leo, they're lost without you. The house is empty. I am empty without the warmth you brought. I ask for your forgiveness, and I beg you, Lena May, please come back. Not just as my housekeeper, but as the heart of our home, as the person who teaches my children what I'm only just learning." Lena May looked at him, truly seeing the transformation in his eyes, the genuine pain and remorse etched on his face. She saw not the imperious millionaire, but a vulnerable man reaching out, humbled and broken. She thought of Lily's tear-stained face, of Leo's quiet despair. Her heart, always full of compassion, stirred. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice softer now, "you caused a lot of hurt, not just to me, but to those children. Trust, once broken, is hard to mend." "I know," Elias said, his voice barely a whisper. "But I promise you, Lena May, I will do everything in my power to earn it back. For them, for us." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I want to learn from you. I want to understand what you understand. I want to be a father who provides more than just a roof and food. I want to provide love and comfort and faith. If you'll teach me." Lena May looked into his eyes, searching. She saw sincerity, she saw vulnerability, and she saw hope. "It won't be easy, Mr. Thorne," she said, a small, sad smile touching her lips. "Changing a lifetime of habits takes courage and faith." "I'm ready," he vowed. "I'm ready for the courage, and I'm ready to learn about faith. Please." A long moment stretched between them. Then Lena nodded, a slow, deliberate gesture. "All right, Mr. Thorne. For the children.
and for that little flicker of light I see trying to shine through in you." The next day, Elias walked into his mansion with Lena May by his side. Lily and Leo, playing quietly in the living room, looked up, their eyes widening in disbelief, then joy. "Lena May!" Lily shrieked, launching herself into Lena May's arms, followed swiftly by Leo. Lena May hugged them fiercely, tears welling in her eyes, her warmth returning to fill the empty spaces in the house. Elias watched, a profound sense of relief and gratitude washing over him. He stepped forward, kneeling beside them. "Lena May is back," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and she's here to stay, and we're all going to learn together." That evening, the family gathered around the fireplace once more. But this time, when Lena May began the bedtime prayer, Elias didn't just listen. He reached for his children's hands, then Lena May's, and for the first time, he spoke the words, softly, tentatively, but with an open heart. "And we ask for strength, to be kind, to be brave, and to remember that you are always with us, in our hearts, in the whispers of the wind, and in the comfort of those who care for us. Amen." Lily and Leo echoed, "Amen." And Elias, for the very first time, added his own heartfelt amen. The millionaire who had come home without notice, frozen at what his black maid was teaching his twins, had finally thawed. He had found not just his children's faith, but his own, unexpectedly, in the quiet wisdom of a woman he had once only seen as an employee. His home was no longer a monument to his ambition, but a sanctuary of unexpected love, nurtured by kindness, humility, and the enduring power of a shared prayer. Elias Thorne had come home, at last, not to a house, but to a family, and to a life truly lived. Elias makes a significant choice in this final act, choosing connection over corporate image. How does this decision complete his emotional transformation? And what does the final scene of shared prayer signify for the future of the Thorne family? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for staying with me to the end. Please like, share, and subscribe.